Hello again guys, it is Carly from the Poetry of Nice, and today I am sharing with you 10 vintage items that I will always pick up to resell online. Without further ado, we're going to hop on over to the laptop and I'm going to show you some actual sales of these items so you can see how much I pick them up for, where I tend to find them, and of course how much they sell for. Alright you guys, I'm going to take you through each of the 10 categories if you like, or 10 items, and I'm going to show you listings from Etsy, just because Etsy is where I primarily do sell a lot of vintage items, and these listings stay here for kind of all time, whereas eBay drops off after 3 months or so. Now each and every one of these listings is a listing that has sold in my store. You can see right over here it says the Poetry of Nice, and up here it says sold this item. So just let you know, these are all actual sold items, and they vary from how long ago it was. This one was from December 2018. Some of them I just sold like a week ago. You get the drift. Okay, so the first category is going to be eyeglasses. Now I primarily pick them up and sell them from the 80s and 90s because that is what I tend to find where I am at rummage sales and yard sales and things. However, I have found and love to sell quite a few items from the 40s and 50s. Those are my favorite. So I'm just going to show you a few different listings. So this one here is really cute with the baby blue and stuff. This was definitely more of an 80s style. These ones had a baby pink kind of purple tint to them. Again, I'm kind of showing you different ways that I have photographed these items as well across time. And then these ones were definitely more of a 50s type vibe with this kind of wayfarer look as well. Now these always tend to sell for me between $30 and $40 on average. And then these had these kind of 9 to 5 dropped arms, which I thought were really, really cool. All right, next category is backgammon sets, which is oddly specific, I know, but I've always done really, really well with these. Now, of course, you need to be careful that you do have all of your pieces. They come with the little discs. It's great when they're like this one, where they come with the instructions as well, and then all the die and the die boxes and things like that. But here is just a few that I have sold over the years, and I tend to get 40 to 50 for these. This one was a bit more special because it had this kind of almost like an Egyptian, Aztec type look to it. So that was kind of cool, but obviously you are counting all your pieces, making sure it's all there, lots of different photographs, and they've had various signs of wear as well, and I don't mind one bit. They still do really good. This one had a corduroy sort of insert there in forest green, which was kind of cool. And I tend to pick them up for $1 or $2 at a yard sale or a rummage sale, and like I said, 40 to 50 each and every time on those for me. The next category is going to be vintage plush. So I tend to go for characters. I don't tend to pick up just any old vintage plush. However, I've done quite well with some vintage Fisher-Price items, which is kind of interesting, especially when you can find out the actual name of that Fisher-Price character. For instance, there was one, I think it was I want to say it was a heffalump, but it wasn't, because that's from Winnie the Pooh. It was something along those lines. So they looked very poofy. It was an elephant, and it was new in box with the no, it wasn't new in box. It was with the sunglasses and stuff, I think. But it was in good condition, and I got $50 for that. So just, it's a good way to go into eBay or Etsy or Poshmark and look and see what all is listed, and if you can, what is sold. It's not as easy on Etsy, I know. But it's a great way to sort of start to learn your plush and what to pick up and things like that. So we have a vintage Snoopy here for an example. We have a set of vintage Lion King toys, which was really cool. The Simba was actually a puppet that roared when you moved its mouth. And then we have Timon and Zazu and Pumbaa. They didn't have everybody there, but this was great. And this was just at a yard sale where someone was cleaning out their attic, basically, from their kids from the 90s. And they did really well as well. Vintage Minnie Mouse. I thought she was really cool. Looking back, I probably would have kept her for my Disney shelves, but that's okay. She went on to a good home. And then Oscar the Grouch again. Things like Oscar the Grouch, not so much like Elmo and things like that, but Oscar the Grouch, occasionally Cookie Monster. Who else? Barney, Snoopy, those kind of more obscure characters I tend to find do well. I don't know. I have a lot of fun. I had a summer where I found loads of Garfield. He's a good one, depending on what it was. I love this Stuff It stocking as well. I've done really well over the years with Barney. However, now I think Target has re-released them, so I would definitely check comps before picking him up. But I've done well with him and Baby Bop, whatever the heck its name is, and those kind of characters. Peanuts obviously have done quite well. I had a summer where I picked up like a bunch of different Snoopy plushes of like $1 a piece, and they were all vintage, like very much vintage, and I just kept selling them one after the other for like $50, and that was a good summer. I don't know how he's doing right now, because I think that was at least last summer, but I was definitely still picking up just these little cute ones. They're adorable and so easy to find usually. All right, next is fanny packs. I pretty much always pick up vintage fanny packs, and the louder the better. So this was a vintage Levi's, which obviously yes. So that one did well. They sell quickly for me. They usually sell around 20 to 25. I should say that the vintage Plush as well usually sell around that $20 to like $40 depending on what it was. This one I picked up just because it was completely bonkers. I don't know. It was like an aquarium style fanny pack, very, very 90s, and it had all these like fish and stuff kind of like floating in it. I just don't even know. But it sold for $20 in like a week, so okay. This one was obviously a Tennessee Vol, so very, very specific. Again, this one, it was kind of oversized, but just had a really cool 90s style graphic to it, which I really liked. I picked them up usually for like $1, again, just like color blocking, very 90s vibe, 80s, 90s, and again, 20 to 25 usually on those. All right, the next is costumes, or things that could be used as costumes. So for example, I have a Barney the Dinosaur costume that was vintage. I have the Baby Bop costume. This one did well with the headpiece as well. I think Baby Bop sold for $50 actually, and the Barney more like $25. Again, more obscure characters seem to do better. And then these are just vintage pieces that I wanted to include because they could very much be used in costumes. So obviously I have the word Sherlock Holmes in here, and then things like this, just like a gothic kind of like vampire costume you can put in there as well. There's lots of different ways to title your items, your listings, so that you can kind of reach SEO and you can get the people there who aren't just looking for a black vintage jacket. They're looking for something Victorian style or vampire style, you know, definitely different ways to do it. I think steampunk would probably be a good one to put in here as well. So I always pick up those kind of like standout pieces that could definitely be used for costumes. All right, next is collegiate. So I sell so much collegiate stuff and I really enjoy doing it. I love the fun vintage graphics. So we have like a Tennessee spell out, like a polo or like a turtleneck. This piece was fun, Auburn versus Alabama. Just a graphic sweatshirt again. I do not always pick them up in perfect condition. Usually they have marks and stains and I disclose them and they do totally fine. Hats, I got a vintage Tennessee Vols hat. Florida Gators sweater. This one in particular had a whole bunch of issues to it. Like I don't know, it's kind of hard to see here, not zoomed in, but all the cuffs were discolored. The person was completely happy with it when they got it because it was well described. There was lots of photos supporting it, but it was a cool graphic. So I went ahead and grabbed it anyway. I thought it was awesome. And these things are selling, like my sweaters and my hats, anywhere between 25 and honestly up to 40, depending on what the graphics are as well and what kind of condition it is in. All right, next is sneakers, vintage sneakers. So I sell all kinds of different styles. I've got some Reeboks to show you as well. So there's some Reebok like low tops, the classics. They don't do as well in my experience, but the high tops like this, the classic high tops, do really well. And again, we're looking at like $40 to $50 here in my experience. I really like these ones because they had like a pearlescent kind of metallic look on the outside and then a turquoise on the inside. But I sell plenty as well that are just like the plain white ones. Again, with those like double straps and things like that, very 80s, 90s style. Pair of vintage Nike Airs. These sat for a little while, but they actually ended up selling for like $90 when they did go. So I was really, really happy with it. Obviously, that's a great return. This was a rummage sale buy for under $1. So that's a great return on investment. And then the, I would say the low top Reeboks probably go for about 25, and then the high top Reeboks closer to that $40 to $50 mark. All right, next is leather items. So obviously you have to be kind of specific in terms of like, are they in style? Are they classic? But here's a couple of items that sold really, really recently. So a vintage black leather pencil skirt. This sold for $50. That sold in about a week. And then this item sold in about a week and a half. It was a vintage teal green suede leather, like sort of midi skirt. Again, $50 on that item. Vintage eSport, like mini leather backpack. Again, super 90s vibes. That one sold for about $25 to $30. and a vintage purple bomber jacket. Again, these are not like brands that I know. They're not brands that necessarily would bring anybody in. It's all to do with the style and obviously the fabric content there, fabric being leather, and obviously being able to use different keywords like bomber jacket, leather jacket, fall jacket, all that kind of stuff in there. And this one here sold for about $50 as well. All right, next is wallets. So this is kind of like a staple, especially in Etsy, and it's starting to do better for me on Poshmark as well, where they tend to go for about $20 a piece, but I can pick them up so cheap at rummage sales and yard sales. You can often tell they're vintage when they have things like this inside. So this was a cool one because it came with all of its like original cards and things like that. Such cool graphics. I loved it. And then often they'll have space for like checkbooks and things like that, and that'll be a really good clue as well. Great keywords for this are things like kiss lock purse, kiss lock wallet, that kind of thing, provided that that's what they have. So here's one. I do like the sort of like the long ones there. They tend to do well. This was just like a little coin purse, again with that kiss lock fastening up here. I thought it was really cool. It had like a neat little sun sort of embossed detail down there as well. Again, $20 usually on these. This one was kind of like almost like a plaid stitch look to it. And oh, I had that item twice. That's okay because I wanted to show you this. And again, another indication this is a vintage piece, just these older identification cards. Really neat features. Don't throw them away. Photograph them and keep them with them because they really help with like the authenticity. All right, and the last one is bedding, so like character sheets and stuff. I love finding this stuff. So we have vintage Superman sheets. These ones were actually dated with 1978, which is really, really useful. Oftentimes you can look at the care tag that'll be down at the corner. Hopefully that will tell you what size it is, you know, twin, full, whatever, and sometimes it will tell you a date. Oftentimes it will say like made in the USA, and you can tell by the graphics as well, usually if it is an older piece. So I think this was just a full size sheet. Again, I had a question mark here because this one didn't say that it was full size, but I do of course always put in my approximate measures and things like that. I do often say as well, vintage condition, that there's several light marks present. I want people to know that because oftentimes people buy this fabric so that they can make things out of it, like children's clothing, or just upcycle it in some way. So I do want them to know that it's vintage and it is, you know, used, if you like. Here you go. This one said 1978 here. Another one was Barney. This was a good find. This was actually a full set. This one sold for about 50, I think. Superman closer to 20. This one I loved. Vintage, like 80s rainbow bed sheets with rain clouds. I just thought they were so cool. I absolutely loved them. Obviously there's you can put in things like LGBT, rainbow pride. There's definitely some other keywords. Think outside the box when you come to your keywords. And these sold for about 50 as well, I believe. And then the last one was 1984 Transformers bed sheet. Again, this was just one sheet. It was a twin fitted sheet. Don't be afraid of the fitted necessarily. If it is, you know, a cool design or licensed and things like that, people will still buy it and use it to upcycle. All right, so that is all of my items to show you.
All right, you guys, that is it for this video. Now is the part where you pop down below in the comments and let me know your favorite vintage pieces to find. What kind of stuff will you always pick up to resell too? Of course, if you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you're new here and you enjoy thrifty content, please do think about hitting subscribe and coming back and hanging out some more. And I'll catch you all in the next video. Stay safe out there, guys. Bye.